There's a delicate balance between training hard, performing enough so that you stay mentally sharp and motivated, and overtraining and overplaying. A lot of professional sports and tours and sports people complain that they have to do that too much. But of course, with the pandemic, nearly all professional sportsmen and women, sports people, professional athletes, they took a break. Now, I don't watch that much professional squash for many reasons, but I did watch some of the highlights from the black ball squash tournament recently. And I read on some of the forums that people were saying that the quality of squash was just incredibly high. And it got me thinking, has the break due to the pandemic actually made professional players better? If we train too much, we get more injuries. And then we don't play as much. And when we don't play as much, then we don't perform as well. So as I said right at the beginning, that balance between performing at our best and performing too much is very delicate. I mean, it takes a small change and you're potentially causing yourself problems. Now, I know that for most club players, probably all club players, the pandemic was an absolute disaster. Not being able to play and do any training was just a disaster. But for professionals, it was a little bit different. Some of them still managed to hit the ball on some courts, but I'm sure all of them took the opportunity to strengthen areas of their body that were weak, allowed injuries to recover, improve their specific fitness. Now, as a club player, you're not going to do that because it's not your job. You're not motivated to do that. But as a professional, you are. If you're forced to take a break, then you use it to get stronger, to get faster, to get fitter. Now, in addition to the balance between overtraining and playing enough, there's also the problem or the issue of economics. A lot of tours force players to play a certain number of tournaments. I don't know how it works in squash, but you often read things in on the websites and BBC and stuff like that if you're a top 10 tennis player, you've got to play a certain number of tournaments, and if you don't, then you get penalised for that. And whilst I understand the need for that to keep the sponsors happy, to make sure that when people buy tickets for a tournament that there are players that were advertised were going to be there, that keeps the sport running. I recognise that. But at the same time, is it good for the individual? Is it good for the players themselves, the athletes themselves, when they get there, if they have to play a certain number of tournaments? Now, of course, in squash, you have to, in the sense it's an obligation because you need the money. I recognise that. Squash certainly doesn't have as much money as a lot of other sports. But would the break help the players? Am I just reading more into those reports and some of the highlights that I've seen? Is it just a coincidence, do you think? Do you think that break has actually helped professional squash players to become better? Now, as I just mentioned, for you and for club players, no, it's been a disaster because you don't need to stay fit in the same way that professionals do. But maybe you had a chance to let some injuries recover. Maybe you have had the opportunity to practice, but perhaps you've been in a place where only solo practice was allowed. And perhaps you noticed, this is actually really good for my game. Maybe I'm going to continue doing this. So I'd like to hear your thoughts about the professional game, and I'd like to hear your thoughts about how the pandemic affected your level as a squash player. Now, of course, you might be, like me, still completely unable to play squash. Part of that reason is because my body is just falling apart. But the main part is because my squash court, I've only got one that I have access to within a 45-minute drive, is closed. And it will be for the foreseeable future. I was hoping it was going to be open in January, but now, at the time of recording this, the 21st of December, that does not look like it's going to happen, and many other people as well. So I know that you might not have been able to go on court, but have you taken the opportunity to work on your flexibility, your core strength, your aerobic fitness with an exercise bike or some running or something? So let me know about that and about the professional squash. Am I reading more into it than it really is? On the screen at the moment, somewhere up here, is a playlist of all of the other questions for you to look at, and probably down here somewhere is another video that YouTube thinks is a really good fit for you, and probably down here is a subscription button. If and only if you think my content is useful, please consider subscribing. And remember, do something every single day to improve your squash. See ya.